everybody. My name is Jonathan, lead pastor at Relevant Church, and I'm joined here in the studio by some amazing friends, amazing humans. I love and respect these guys so much, and we're going to be talking through the book of Ruth in a series that we're starting today called When Will It Stop? I know that we're in the middle of this pandemic, and the question that most people are asking is, when can I start my life again? When will this stop so I can start my life again? And so we're going to be talking about that as Scripture reveals God's heartbeat towards our lives, even during this time in the book of Ruth. And so before we even get started there, I want to give a moment so that my homies, my people who are here in the studio can introduce themselves. I'm joined by Stephanie, Ursel, and Scott, but I'm going to give you guys a second to just kind of say a shout out and shout out to your mamas, whoever it is that you want to say hi to in this moment, because we're going to have a good time. So
True.
Go ahead, man.
Hey, I'm Ursel Watson. I'm the production lead at Relevant. And in my spare time, I'm a photographer, and I love plants, animals, and all things food related.
Amen to that. I've often called you the Black Hobbit.
The Black Hobbit. I'm Negro Baggins in the flesh.
Negro Baggins.
Negro
We have Negro
Baggins.
Baggins.
That's right. I'm here.
Please don't send us an email about Negro Baggins, okay? I don't know if that's even culturally appropriate to say at this time.
He lived in the Shire. He was there. He just didn't make it on camera. He was on the scary part of the Shire. They didn't go over there. Bilbo's like, stay away from that part of the Shire.
Oh my
Frodo,
goodness.
you can go to Mordor, but don't go to the scary side of the Shire. Isn't that crazy? Anyway, sorry. My fault. Anyway.
And Scott.
Scott, please.
Hello. How are you?
I'm none of those things. Thank the Lord for that every day. My name's Scott. I serve on our pastoral team. I would like to give a shout out to my mom. She lives in Maine. The internet hasn't made it that far yet.
So she won't even get the shout
She
out.
won't get the shout out. I'll send you some smoke signals though.
We'll mail her a screenshot.
I'll mail her. It won't get there for like 3 weeks. It's a nice gesture.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. I'm Stephanie, and I serve at Relevant Church. I'm the ministry coordinator, and I coordinate the ministries. That's pretty much it. I don't have any funny, extras, like
make sure
Negro Baggins or Maine over here. So I'm going to leave it at that.
Right, but everything is coordinated.
Everything's coordinated for the most part. We coordinate. Coordinate.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Well, listen, I recently became a card-carrying member of the Dad Joke Club. It's an actual club. And after you have 4 children, within a span of 6 years, you get inducted into it automatically. No rituals, no application, completely you're in.
Welcome aboard.
Yeah, thank you for everything. And the beautiful thing about dad jokes are that dad jokes work because they're saying something true, but when you think about it, they're hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, to us, now that I'm a member, it's hilarious. Stephanie, I don't know.
Probably not, but we'll try it.
The other day I'm at the grocery store. I'm at Stater Brothers, and I'm buying some almond milk. And the lady says, the cashier goes, "Do you want me to bag that for you?" I'm like, "No, keep it in the carton."
Dad joke.
So good.
If you're a dad.
If you're a dad, then you get that, right?
It's hilarious.
You like that.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
I might borrow that.
You can,
It's
absolutely.
yours.
Absolutely. Royalty free. The thing about dad jokes is that they niche down. There's different niches. There's good news, bad news jokes, and those are jokes that go from triumph to tragedy very quickly. There's 2 guys, both of them love football, and so they say to each other, "Hey, if I die first, or if you die first, one of us has to come back and tell the other if there's football in heaven." So one of them dies. A few weeks later, comes back, sends a message saying, "Hey, I've got good news, bad news. Good news is there's football in heaven. What's the bad news? You're quarterbacking next Friday."
Wow.
Okay.
Steph is not having it.
It's the bad
I'm
news. You're on the roster.
waiting for the punchline.
That is the fun.
Just waiting for it. Oh, that was it.
Yeah. So, and then a lesser known niche in the good news, bad news joke is the bad news, worse news. bad news, worse news jokes are the best. I mean, they're dark, but they work. And if you're a dad, it's like you appreciate them. So a guy gets called into by his doctor. Okay. Doctor says, I've got some bad news. I've got some worse news. He says, well, what's the bad news? The bad news is you have 24 hours to live. Oh, what can get any worse than that? I've been trying to get a hold of you since yesterday. So
That one was better.
Slightly better.
Yeah.
slightly
I've
better.
been trying to
Yeah.
get a hold of you since yesterday.
Since
So-
yesterday, I've been trying to get a hold of you.
You've got minutes.
Yeah. We don't know at what time, but anyways. So, the thing about life is that life can oftentimes be a situation of good news, bad news. You get accepted into the school of your choice. However, you don't get the full ride scholarship. And it's expensive as hell, right?
Yeah.
You get the job of your dreams, but it's in Iowa.
Yeah.
That's worse news.
Right?
Iowa.
Or it's a graveyard shift. You never have a life. Your wife, your family. You're starting to do family planning, and on the first try of starting a family, your wife gets pregnant. However, your mother-in-law wants to move in with you to help take care of the baby. Now, I have a great mother-in-law, just if you're watching or listening. Life goes through these ebb and flows where you get good news, you get bad news. But then there's times where you get bad news and you get worse news and you get worse news. And that's where the book of Ruth starts off. It starts off in, I'm going to read it. I'm going to read the passage. If you, I don't know if you guys have your phones or you can read it with me. But in Ruth chapter 1, it says, in the days when the judges ruled, there was famine in the land, and a man of Bethlehem in Judah went to sojourn in the country of Moab, he and his wife and his 2 sons. And there's so much heaviness that's in that passage right there. In the days when the judges ruled, there was famine. And what's happening is that the writer of Ruth is telling you what's happening, but he's also telling you when it's happening. And the time of the judges for the Jews was a time of darkness. It was a time when they didn't have a king because God was their king, right? And you had these judges that ruled, but a lot of them were evil men and women who terrorized the people. So you've got the bad news was it was the time of the judges. The worst news was there was a famine. Now, when you think about famine, I want you to think in terms of there's no financial bailout. There is no crazy stimulus package that's coming along the way. There's no food being sent by the other countries or the other states. Everybody is in trouble at this time.
I think about the grocery store when they first announced the lockdown. The first time you walk in the grocery store, the meat counter's empty, the toilet paper counter's empty, like everything's gone.
Cleared out.
Yeah.
Famine, right.
Yeah. The bad news, there's a virus. Worse news, there's no supplies
no
for
toilet
it.
paper.
You can't wipe
There's
it.
no toilet paper.
What's funny about the time when that happened is that like you quickly got to see what people don't want to buy.
Yeah.
Like the beets aisle.
Produce.
It was completely stocked.
All things healthy, available.
Oh,
Snacks,
Gone.
Gone.
Everything gone.
No nutty bars. No.
But the thing is that like, the backdrop of this is that it's a time of darkness and the worst news that it's a famine. There's no supplies. And this man named Elimelech, verse 2 says the name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife Naomi, and the names of their sons were Mahlon and Chilion, and they were Ephrathites from Bethlehem in Judah. They went to the country of Moab and remained there. Goes from bad news, time of the judges, worse news, famine. Even worse news, they decide to go to a place that God had banned. God was like, do not go to Moab. Do not associate with those people. And the reasoning behind it is that the Moabites were known for child sacrifice and murder and all kinds of stuff. And so here they are leaving the place of God's provision and going to Moab. And I don't know about you, but I know that there's times in my life where I've been in a bad situation and I've literally made decisions to find safety and shelter in places that were completely against purpose, against destiny, against all the things that I knew were right for me, right? And the thing that's even more interesting as we get into this passage is that the guy's name is Elimelech. which means God is my king. That's his name. That's his calling. His calling is God is my king. And here he is going against the instructions of his king. You know, and to the Jewish people, when they look at this, they're like, you made a bad decision to go to Moab, and now the domino effect of all the bad things that are going to happen in your life are a result of you deserting God's plan.
Wow.
So my question to you guys is, when in your life have you been in a situation where you knew what you were supposed to do, but circumstances caused you to go against the ideal, go against what was right, go against what was supposed to be, a part of your purpose? Like you literally deviated and chose Moab and went against the calling of who you are.
So when I was sexually assaulted, and I knew I needed to heal from that, but instead all the anxiety and things that I was feeling, I decided to deviate from like the healing plan, as believers, we want to go through. I deviated to see if I was okay by pursuing other sexual relationships, just to make sure I was okay. If I could experience a positive sexual experience again. But what that ended up doing was making everything worse. I ended up having more panic attacks, becoming more angry. Even now it's like not affecting relationships with a man, but even friendships and family, and just becoming like extremely hostile. So it went from really bad from like the assault, and then it got to worse because now I just don't want to be around anybody, and affected my church life, friendships, business, any kind of relationship I had with anything. I was just so hostile in my mind and in my spirit, and it just was just like a spiral of crap.
Right. Now, when you're in that space, how do you even come out of that? Like, or are you so far deep that you're just kind of like, no options?
I felt that way. I felt like this was just going to be my life. I was just going to be an angry individual. Like there were times where I would even project frustrations onto team members, or just like mouth off and just be just hostile. And sometimes that still comes up. So it's like, okay, God, am I going to be angry forever? Like, okay, yeah, this is a part of my story. And if I think about it, I get upset because it's truly sad. But I was like, I don't want to lash out and project. But so when is that going to discontinue? So it's like, yes, the option is now choosing Christ and knowing that I'm renewed in that. But when I think about it, or there'll be certain triggers, I'm just like, I want to punch something or somebody. But it's like, I can't do that because punching people is not, it's frowned upon.
Unless there's a ring or an octagon, then it's
and then I'll get a check, but that's different.
I'll bet on you, Steph.
Okay, great.
She may be small, but she packs a mean punch. Yeah, it's crazy because the Book of Ruth. A lot of times it's quoted at weddings. Your people will be my people. We look at it as a book of romance and a book of unexpected love and connection and all that. That's what's celebrated about the Book of Ruth. However, Ruth, who is seen as the star of the book, would be no one, would literally be unknown. People would not name their children Ruth had it not been for Naomi's tragedy. And what you'll discover in this is that the greatest breakthrough in people's lives are built on the backbone of tragedy. But it's often how you handle that tragedy. How do you deal with it? And that's what we're going to get into here in a few minutes. But where have you seen a breakdown in your life, Marcel, and instead of seeking the breakthrough, you went further down into the breakdown?
Oh, man. First of all, when haven't I done that? Like, I think my life has literally been just a series of that in the breakdown. And then, you know what? Let's just make this worse. My biggest thing, I've probably been blind to the hope that God provides. My life approach has been, this is going to not work out. So when it's not working out, let's just go ahead and make it worse. I hate to say it like this, but I've gotten into relationships where I knew how I'm entering this is not how God would have it. You know, nothing against the person I was dating, but just my approach to it. And when God's throwing the signals on, like, hey, let's make this worse. We should start having sex now. We should move in together.
Right.
Even though I know you're not the one. Let's throw the risk of this being something permanent. First time I moved to Riverside was because I stole my mother's credit card, bad. Bought an airplane ticket, worse. Flew out to Riverside to live with my girlfriend, terrible. And it was a compiling snowball of, dude, what are you doing? And every decision I made was just worse. It's almost like the enough is enough prayers where I am. It's like, you know what, God, enough's enough already. Like, I've hit the bottom and I've gotten familiar at the bottom. Let me experience something different.
Right. And the thing that's crazy about being in that space is that oftentimes when you experience bad news to bad news to bad news, the moment that God shows up and does something good for you, you can't enjoy the blessing because you're expecting that the shoe's going to drop at any moment.
Yes, let me. Yep.
You know, and then we become the masters of self-sabotage.
Yeah.
You know, we were joking earlier about, you know, feeling awkward every day, telling yourself that I'm just awkward. You know, that's like, I think that everybody at this table would say that, you know, you feel the self-doubt. And usually it's because you've had events in your life that have taught you to doubt yourself over and over again. And the moment confidence shows up, you're like, no, it's not going to work because of this and that, you know. Yeah. And you're literally arrested from ever experiencing what God's bringing into your life. Yeah. It could be in a relationship. Like he's truly a good man or she's truly a good woman, but because of all these other things that you carry.
Man.
Yeah, it messes it all up.
It messes everything up.
Right. And so Naomi and her husband Elimelech and their two sons, they moved to Moab. And by moving to Moab, her husband dies. And 10 years later, as the text says, her two sons suddenly die. And the bottom has, like, it's done. She's in a mess right now. Back then, you know, single woman, widowed, no children. There is no bailout for you. And
can we park on something really quick?
Go ahead.
It's something that I think it's really easy to just gloss over. But you said that her husband dies, and then 10 years later, her two children die. And I think that part of the story, like the part we just gloss over, is what I connect with the most. Mostly because, like, in my journey, like the things that I've gone through that have kind of pulled me away from the purpose of God, I just like began to accept the status quo. Like I'm in this situation, and like you said, for whatever reason, there's no confidence, there's no, like, the blessing comes and whatever, but I've accepted that reality as my normal, as the status quo. So like I'm here for a moment, 10 years later, I'm still here, right? And nothing's changed. I've done nothing to try to move from that, and next thing you know, it's another tragedy, and it just begins like the cycle all over again.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. You know, it's funny. Like, this isn't even in the notes or anything like that, but I feel as if the way that God works in our life sometimes is that you remain. The text says that they remained in Moab. They settled there. And oftentimes we settle in places that God never wants us to be at. Yeah. And the only way that he can get us to move again, sometimes, is another tragedy.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
That tragedy becomes the launching point for the next chapter, because you're so fixated on this chapter that you're in, you know, that it becomes just a cycle that you know, it's the norm and the routine that's like, you know, comforting to you. And so God's like, listen, it's kind of like, you know, when you know that you're supposed to leave that job. Yeah. You know that you're supposed to go start your business. You know that you're supposed to leave that relationship, but instead you stay there. And so God's like, okay, you're choosing not to make a choice, so I'll make a choice for you. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that he's going to author evil. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that sometimes things will happen in your life that will push you to the next level. Right. And here's what's happened. That's exactly what happens. It says, verse 4 says, verse 3, but Elimelech, the husband of Naomi, died, and she was left with her two sons. These took Moabite wives. The name was Orpah. One of the name was Orpah. The other was Ruth. And they lived about 10 years. And both Mahlon and Chilion died, so that the women were left with her. The woman was left with her two sons and her husband. And so she rises up. Verse 6. She arose with her daughters-in-law to return from the country of Moab, for she had heard that the fields of Moab, that the Lord had visited his people and was giving them food. So she set out from the place where she was with her 2 daughters-in-law, and they went on their way to return to the land of Judah. So there's 3 big ideas that I want to hit on here, because here she is. She's like, when will it stop? I've lost everything. When will it, be done? And there's the first thing that I want to hit on is, when tragedy hits, you must fight the urge to face it alone. Fight the urge to face it alone. When when worst case scenario becomes your reality, we often want to face that worst case scenario by ourselves. Because we want to manage our own pain. We don't want to let other people come in to help us manage it. We don't want to allow other people to be so close, because the truth is that pain is embarrassing.
Very much so. Yeah.
There's never a moment where pain is like one of those things like, oh, look, at the deepest, darkest pain that I'm experiencing in my life, I want it to be exposed. We don't want people to see us in our raw state. So she tells her daughters-in-law to go back to their mothers. She's like, verse 8, but Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, go return, each of you, to your mother's house. May the Lord deal kindly with you as you have dealt with the dead and with me. The Lord grant that you may find rest, each of you, in the house of your husband. Then she kissed them, and they lifted up their voices and wept. And she's literally saying, I'm going to face this by myself. How has that worked for you in trying to face stuff by yourself? How has it served you?
Not good. I'll never forget, there's going through the worst scenario of my life. I just moved to California, and within 5 months, everything fell apart. And I remember sitting on the floor of the dining room of this house we were renting in Corona and holding the phone and not wanting to call my mom because of just what I was expecting from her, just because of the church background that I came from and all of these things. And I literally sat on the floor for an hour with the phone in my hand, just trying to work up the courage to call, because I knew that even though I didn't want to go through it alone, I there's something holding me back. And I just remember finally dialing her number and receiving exactly the opposite of what I was expecting. And I think that was the moment for me that really became part of my paradigm, was that I can't do this by myself.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's for me, it's just a huge mountain to get over.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I tried it alone for 2 months, because I knew if I would have called off of work the same morning that it happened, my boss would have asked, why can't you come? And then I would have to say it, or try to make up a lie to go on top of it. So let me just go to work and just pretend as if nothing happened. But then I got triggered by something, and then it all just started to vomit out, and I started to share it with people. And then in that moment, I was like, oh, okay, so I can do this with people, but I'm not going to tell everybody, but I can do this with someone. But I tried it, and it was probably the worst, 2.5 months ever. Right. Just angry, crying, not really understanding why I couldn't be excited about anything that was happening in my life at the time, because it was just
And I think that's why a lot of people get to those points where they try to self-medicate or numb it themselves, because there's a need to get it out.
Yeah.
And if you've closed yourself from community, then you've kind of closed yourself from that outlet too. So in an attempt but you've not dealt with the issue or the pain or the hurt. So
yeah.
Do you guys know of anybody that's become an addict in public? The devices that we use to numb ourselves are often when we're trying to go face it by ourselves.
Yeah.
And we pick up these devices and these mechanisms to try to transport us into a better place when we're trying to isolate, self-isolate, and do it all by ourselves. I think that the second thing that we need to do whenever the bottom falls out, when you're crying out, when will it stop, is to literally don't make excuses for other people. In other words, don't say no for other people, right? Like we oftentimes will give people's response to our pain before we ever share our pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like I don't want you to come and be there for me, so I'm going to reject you this way.
Yeah.
It's in word, it's in deed. It's we push people away. We want to give them permission to leave us alone so we can deal with it by ourselves.
Yeah.
And so we ghost people. What's your best ghosting mechanism?
Block.
Block.
Just block 'em.
Just block them.
You can't reach me.
Block and unfollow. Mine is busyness. I'll tell people, I'm too busy. I can't hang out. I'm too busy, and I fill my life up with stuff, and fill myself up with work, and it's really my way of giving you an excuse not to
Yeah.
get involved.
Yeah.
It's me saying no for you, coming up with excuses as to why we can't connect, we can't do stuff with each other, and that's literally what she does. If you look at what she's saying to her two daughters-in-law, she says to them, "Return to your mother's house," right? And verse 10, she says, "And they said to her, 'No, we'll return with you to your people.' But Naomi," watch her, making excuses for them. She says, Naomi says, "Turn back, my daughters. Why will you go with me? Have I yet sons in my womb that may become your husbands? Turn back, my daughters. Go away, for I am too old to have a husband. If I should have hope, even if I should have a husband this night and bear sons, would you therefore wait till they're grown? Would you therefore refrain from marrying? No, my daughters, for it is exceedingly bitter to me for your sake that the hand of the Lord has gone out against me." In other translations, it says literally, God has raised his fist against me, so don't be in my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm cursed. I don't want you to experience my curse.
Yeah.
So let me give you the reasons why you should not be in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can totally relate to that.
I know, because you're my best friend. you ghost me quite often,
Bro. And it's an art. I think the same way you develop healthy habits, like you're right. Like I'll make my availability at hours that are unavailable for everyone else. Let's link up. Yeah, I'm available at 11. Work for you? Work for you, married guy with kids? No, it doesn't. Great. Now I can still hide.
Right.
I'm seeming that I'm accessible. I didn't say no, let's not connect. Of course, let's do it. Midnight sound good for you?
Nope.
So now I can stay in my ghosted area. Yeah. Shame is crazy what it'll do to you when you allow it to control.
Man.
Right.
There's I think the solitude moments have been for me just you're surrounded by shame, so you stay in shame, and then it gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And 10 years pass. Wait, a decade has passed. Facebook's reminding me of that tragic weekend, and oh my goodness, that was 12 years ago. That was 15 years ago, and I feel the exact same way as this post. It's like, man, you see where you've grown, but then you see where shame almost like limits anything progressing because you're stuck.
Right.
And that's that's the aha, wow, you're right. Like the tragic moment happens, and then a decade went by.
Right.
It's crazy too. Like I don't know how to frame it. Like my defense mechanism to keep people out is I've become emotionless.
Yeah.
So and it's weird because it's almost, it becomes a prison because I don't flee and isolate. I'm still around people, but because I bury it so deep and I'm emotionless, I'm constantly confronted by my own pain because I'm still with people who have no idea how I'm feeling on the inside.
Yeah.
So it's this weird emotionlessness that allows me to operate without ever feeling healed or, getting out of that 10-year, whatever it is.
The joys of a photographer. You can hide behind what you distract people with.
Wow. That's deep.
You look at my social media, you know nothing. I share nothing personal for a reason. It's seriously. You post a picture. This was a beautiful sunset, and folks will be distracted from whatever they feel there's a connection, but it's like there's still very, very, very safe distance.
And it's funny to think about it too. Like what's trending right now on social media, people creating avatars. And it's just, and I'm not trying to bag on it. I'm just not very social media savvy.
I have no idea.
But in this time where we're going through this together, the biggest impulse is to create a fake version of ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me.
It's amazing how 10 years plus of resentment can come to this point of her becoming so irrational in her reasons as to why they should not be with her.
Oh yeah.
You know, her coming up with all these reasons, and bitterness and resentment are the worst things to shape your perspective on the world.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It sucks.
Yeah.
You know, it
That's so real, bro. That's the realest. That's so real.
Yeah.
you become a porcupine to every relationship that
Yeah.
can be life giving to you.
Me all 2019.
Right.
Yeah, I think I was so pointy, I guess. Just used the relationship for what it was, and then didn't care that he was hurt or didn't care who I was hurting at the time, because I just got what I needed to feel okay and then just moved on. So it's just damaging because I felt like I was damaged. I was like, why do you want to be with me or over here when XYZ has happened? I'm damaged goods, but you're telling me that I'm not, but I don't believe you because of all these situations. So it's just, I'd rather just get from you, hurt you so you can go away. You have a reason to be away from me because I just hurt you. Right. So it's super intentional.
Right.
Don't be a prick. I think that's the takeaway. Porcupine.
Porcupine.
Be a prick. That's right. That's right. Okay.
Be a rose.
Is that a dad joke? I think that was a dad joke.
Should go on a t-shirt.
You're welcome.
Should go on a
Welcome to
t-shirt.
the
Don't be
club.
a
We've
prick
been
with a
waiting for you.
porcupine on
We've
it.
been
I've been here.
Finally clocked in. Finally clocked
Pound it
in.
out. Dad joke. Insert.
Woo.
Not a dad yet.
I will never be a dad. Awesome.
You got to wonder, though, what in those 10 years, what did she find herself, even the small things that she clinged on that allowed her to stay in that space? Because I've also noticed there's the big tragedy, but then there's the little bits and pieces that come that you kind of hold on to stay there.
Those small little things.
Yeah, the
become
small little things become like,
confirmations.
yeah, and it's
That
like,
God's
I wonder
against
what
you.
she was, what else she experienced that kept her there, or what she chose to receive.
Right.
I think a part of the story too is like, what is she going to go back to?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Shame. She was going back to her facing her family back home,
Yeah.
saying, "You guys, your husband, whose name is God is my king, rejected God and went to Moab.
Yeah.
There, he died because of his mistake." Here's the thing about it, right? I often say this: karma is the opposite of grace,
Come on.
right? But the religion of the world is karma.
Yeah.
And karma means that you're getting what you deserve.
Right.
And so her going back to Bethlehem was facing people who are going to say, you got what you deserve. You went to Moab. Your husband died. Your 2 sons died. Tough luck. You got what you deserve, right? And so just moving along a little bit here, first 2 things, when the bottom falls out, when you're crying out, when will it stop? Number 1, fight the urge to face it by yourself. Number 2, don't make excuses for other people. Don't let other people, don't say no for the people who want to give life to you.
Yeah.
And thirdly, when someone offers to be present in your life, let them. When someone offers to be present in your life, let them. What happens next is amazing because, man, we put so much energy into image management.
Come on. Yes, we do.
Right? We put so much energy into image management, making your life look better than what it really is. Buying stuff that make you look better than what you really feel on the inside. Spending when you know what you really have on your credit card balance, right? Image management. We make ourselves seem more spiritual than we really are. Blessed, highly favored, whatever it is, and nice little Instagram photo, right? And to choose to give someone access to our life when we're in crisis is a hard decision to make because it goes against our Instagram avatar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? But giving someone the right to have access to your life when things are hitting the fan is a beautiful thing. So watch what happens. It says this. It says, then they lifted up their voices. Verse 14. They lifted up their voices and wept again. And Orpah kissed her mother-in-law. But Ruth clung to her. And she said, see, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people, to her gods. Return after your sister-in-law. But Ruth said, do not urge me to leave you or return from following you. For where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God. Where you die, I will die. There will I be buried. May the Lord do so to me and more, if anything, but death parts me from you. And when Naomi saw that she was determined to go with her, she said no more. When someone says, I'm going to be in your life, let them ride. Shut up and let them ride.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So who becomes that person for you? Like, that you literally have, like, you've gone through stuff and you've opened the door and they see the things that the rest of the world does not see on social media about you. But you give them access and say, hey, you know what? I can be real with you. It's often interesting how, like, we are so afraid of the judgments. And I was having dinner with some friends last night, and we were talking about how if we were really, really honest with each other, if we went around the table, every one of us would literally have a, that happened to me too moment. That's how I feel also moment.
Yeah.
Right.
There would be no judgments because we're going through the same crap, right? So who is that person? Who is it? How do they show up in your life? God created us to live life in community, to experience pain together, to experience triumph together.
Yeah.
Grace manifests itself in community. Grace is not a solitary thing where by yourself you can experience it. The one thing that if I was to put a button on this would be when the bottom falls out, be in community. Fight the urge to face it alone. Don't put a no in somebody's mouth who wants to be there for you. And thirdly, when someone wants to be there for you, let them, and do life in community. God did not create us for life by ourselves. And if we read the rest of the book of Ruth, we get to the last chapter, we see the triumph of what happens in the end, about the new family that is started, the beauty that is built on the backbone of tragedy. But none of that beauty would have been preserved for us to have as a story of hope and inspiration had Naomi not gone through all that tragedy.
Yeah.
Right? And so community with others, being community, living community, sharing community. Ruth does not have the benefit of knowing how her story ends. And even us, we don't experience or fully comprehend how God is at work in real time. We often see how God moved in rewind, in reverse. When you look over your life, you say, oh my gosh, the breakup was horrible. However, thank God I broke up with that fool.
Man,
Right?
Say it again.
It was horrible to go through that foreclosure when I lost my job, but look at this business that we've started.
Yeah.
I lost that major client, but they were the client from hell. I could not just admit it at the time. But look at all the better clients I now have, right? And so in reverse, you're able to see how God worked through it. But when you're going through it, the only way that you go through it is when you allow others to be in it with you, riding with you. And what I would say to those that are watching and listening is the call to action here is simple. Be in community.
Yeah.
Fight the urge to face things by yourself. Do not put no's in the mouths of people that want to be there for you. And when someone is clinging to you, to be with you, to be your ride or die, can I say that? In 2020, your ride or die, let them.
Yeah.
Let them be there for you, because you are not built to do this thing by yourself. So when will it stop? You know what? When will this pandemic be over? When will all these things that have disrupted our lives be over? You know what? I don't have the answer to that. But what I do know is that we can be in it together.
Come on.
Amen.
Yeah.
We can be in it together, and we can go through it together. And on the other side, we'll celebrate what God has done together.
Amen.
Let me pray for y'all. God, thank you so much for this time to just go into your word and pull out the truth that you have for us. Although there's bad news all around us, we know that breakthrough is built on the backbone of bad news. From ashes, you pull out beauty. So God, I just ask that for whoever is listening, whoever is watching, that you would allow them to see that they don't have to face this by themselves. They don't have to experience this by themselves. That they can fight the urge to face things by themselves, because there are people placed in their life, even right now, that are there to cling to them, and go through it with them. And on the other side, we'll experience your grace and see you manifest some goodness in our lives. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Hey guys, thanks so much for joining us today on this podcast. Feel free to subscribe. We love our subscribers. Our subscribers get special gifts because we love them. And so check this out. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, wherever it is on social media. We are there. Find us and follow, and we will be with you along the way on this journey of life together. We love you. Stay connected.